So this is kind of a funny conversation to have. In my fantasy league this year, there's been a pretty big conversation surrounding goaltending. Because if you didn't have yourselves the luxury of being able to reserve one of the top goalies in the league, the Igor Shesterkins or the Ilya Sorokins or the Markstroms or the Demkos or whomever, if you didn't have the opportunity to get one of these guys right off the rip, your only option was to draft a goalie. And for a lot of guys, a lot of players in my league, it's a 16-team league, it's pretty deep, and there are so many draft picks available to you that you have to fill out. So realistically, when it comes to the goaltenders, there are only so many that are actually good around the league. And most of them have been already snagged up or reserved. So I, like many of the other teams that didn't have goalies that were good enough to reserve on the keep list, ended up needing to scour the free agent market and the draft to get our goaltending positions filled. It's a category league, so you kind of need to have a goaltender. This is not like the Hot Take Hockey meathead fantasy league that I was in last year, where you could drop your goalies for a guy that could get blocks and hits, and that'd be a lot more beneficial for you. But this time around, we had ourselves a conversation about a Montreal Canadiens goaltender that was a pretty hot topic. You see, when it comes to Samuel Montembeault, he posted up a fantastic shutout to open up the 2024-2025 season, and that set the tone. He was an immediate free agent pickup the very next day because, hey, this guy's good. He had a shutout, that's a really good leading stat, 48 saves and 48 shots against. What more could you ask for out of Sammy Montembeault? Well, turns out you could ask for a lot. Because as Montembeault has continued throughout the season, his save percentage has just gotten worse and worse and worse. And it's become a little bit of a meme, because every once in a while you'll see people going out there and buzzing around in the chat, hey, look at Sammy Montembeault, he's doing it again. The reason I say that is because following the 48 save shutout Montembeault had a few weeks ago against Toronto, he then posted up a 960 against Ottawa, very nice, then an 828 with 5 goals against in a loss against Pittsburgh, not great. He bounced up to a 903 against the LA Kings, which is pretty good, and then he had himself 2 dud games out of the last 3. Against the New York Rangers, Samuel Montembeault had 4 goals against on 10 shots against in 11 minutes time on ice. If you do the math on that, Samuel Montembeault had a 21.6 goals against per game in that contest. He then had himself a pretty good win against the St. Louis Blues. He made 29 saves on 31 shots there, a .935 save percentage, his third best game of the year, but then quickly followed that up with a terrible showcase against the Seattle Kraken. They lost 8-2. Montembeault let in 5 goals on 10 shots in 21 minutes of ice time. In this game, his goals against average was 14.29. Anything above like a 3 is already considered bad in terms of goals against average, but Samuel Montembeault had posted up 2 games where he was not only at 10 plus goals against per 60, but in the New York game he was at 20. A 20 goals against average per 60, that is terrible. Luckily, goals against average numbers are not taken by calculating the average of all the goals against average metrics. They are taken by calculating the average of goals against per the amount of total time played. So just because Montembeault has 1 game that he is listed as playing where he has a 20-something goals against, that's not really fair to compile it like that because he only played 11 minutes. It's based off of the ratio of those minutes in particular, which is why his total goals against average this season is only 3.67. His 8.91 save percentage certainly isn't great either, especially when you consider the fact that he had a 903 last year. But ultimately, Sammy Montembeault is putting himself in a really difficult spot for Montreal Canadiens fans who want to believe in what this team is capable of. Because realistically, you know, the Habs, they're in the thick of it. Everybody knows this rebuild is going to last for quite some time, and there isn't any short-term results that they can expect. The team kind of sucks, and the defense kind of sucks, and the goaltending hasn't really been anything to write home about, so, Yeah, I don't necessarily think any Canadiens fan is going to be looking at the first few weeks of the season and concluding that, yeah, they're going to make the playoffs, right, guys? It's possible. I mean, they're just barely on the outside looking in, but still, the caliber of team we have seen, the caliber of goaltending we are also witnessing, it doesn't fit. And I think this was also expanded upon in a pretty interesting way by the folks over on La Presse, because if you take a look at this audio link on La Presse, episode 11 of Zone Exit Season 6, you will find yourselves a conversation about goaltending. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to listen to this yourself, but there are some individual moments that are written about here. Dave Morissette said this on the La Presse show: Kent Hughes wants to be given a defenseman. He wants to free a team from a defenseman. Kent Hughes is not going to mortgage the future. He's not going to trade a young player. Do you know how this is going to end? The Canadiens are going to get an experienced goalie. How do you fill the defensive gaps? You are going to get an experienced goalie to support Samuel Montembeault. And that just happens to be one of the conversations they have on the show. They talk about a few other things as well. But with this in mind, I wanted to dive into the conversation on this YouTube channel as to whether or not you're confident that Samuel Montembeault can be the guy. And I say just very vaguely, can be the guy. Because when you say the guy, what do you think about? You think about a player that can lead, that can put the team on his back, whom you can rely upon. For the most part, Samuel Montembeault has shown throughout the past few years that he has that in him. He had a 48-save shutout to open up the year. That is absolutely qualities of the guy. But then he had himself that New York game. And I didn't want to panic, didn't want to go out there and make any commentaries about it saying, okay, he sucks now because he let in, 4 goals on 10 shots. We're not going to conclude that yet. But then he did it again. And he made it even worse the next game against Seattle. Sure, he had the St. Louis win in there, so all the good faith was restored for a little bit, but it's all gone now against the Seattle Kraken. And the worst part about it is, Montembeault, after getting pulled against Seattle, he was frustrated, he was slamming his stick, and then you saw the next day, it was his birthday. And people in the comments on Instagram were roasting the hell out of this guy. Oh, you don't get a happy birthday after last night. What terrible timing this was to post on the Montreal Canadiens Instagram page. Fans all over Montreal Canadiens Nation are kind of just blasting this guy, talking all this smack about him. And I wanted to bring this up here on the channel because if you believe that the folks over on La Presse are correct, that Samuel Montembeault's play has been so poor that the Montreal Canadiens have no choice but to go out there and make a trade for another goalie. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Who do the Habs go after? What name is out there that you think would be an option here, and what name do you think would actually make sense for the Canadiens? Some people are talking about John Gibson, others are talking about extra goalies, other guys that are rotating around in 3 goalie rotations in the NHL. Jake Allen isn't really a primary guy in New Jersey now that they have Jacob Markstrom. Do you think there's some sort of a future there? I'm just spitting off the top of the dome here, but you can let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Who do you think the Habs would benefit from in net? If you think instead, though, that Montembeault can still be the guy, hey, you are very free to go out there and express that opinion. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.